On this episode of Philippines Extremes, I'm going to talk to you about reasons why you should not move to the Philippines. Now, first of all, as a disclaimer, I just want to mention that the Philippines is a lovely country. It's my favorite place on earth. I would never want to live anywhere else. And for me, I check all these boxes. So, um, if you cannot check off these boxes that I'm about to present to you, then you should not move here. Okay. Now, the first thing that is going to be in your face the moment you walk off the plane is the heat. Now, if you've never experienced humidity and heat before, it's quite a contrast to what you're used to. I've never been to Florida, but I've heard that even Florida is insignificant compared to the Philippines and tropical countries of Asia. So if you cannot deal with the heat and the humidity, then you definitely should not come here. Now, another reason why you should not come here. Now, the Philippines is great, and Filipinos love their karaoke. They love to sing. They love to party. In their off time, even on a Tuesday, sometimes they will have karaoke parties, and people will come over and they'll sing. Now, there's supposedly rules that they have passed that prohibit karaoke after a certain time, but in the barangays and stuff, that's not really enforced, and it can go on all hours of the night. So that's just a given. I mean, so you're going to hear that on a regular basis. But one thing, and maybe you get lucky and you don't have those issues. Maybe there's no karaoke going on in your neighborhood. So what? Great. However, guarantee you there's going to be roosters. There's going to be roosters, and they're going to crow, and they're going to crow on a regular basis. There's going to be dogs that bark and howl all night. In the Philippines, there's a lot of stray dogs, and at nighttime they roam around and they do what dogs do. They howl, to attract females, and they're out and they're breeding, they're barking and they're fighting, and they do that all hours of the night. Now, if you live in an area where there's a lot of tricycles, and you're close to the street, you're going to hear trikes going up and down the road every night, and it may, disturb your sleep. So if you cannot adapt to those things, you're going to hate it here. Simple as that. You're not going to like it. In fact, one of the first places that I moved to years ago, because I've been, in and out of this country for the last decade, the place behind my apartment had cockfighting, and it was about a hectare of land, and they had at least hundreds of roosters back there. So they not only did the cockfighting on certain days, but the roosters lived there too, and they would raise them. And so it was nonstop noise, and it took me about a month to get used to it, but I adapted. Some people cannot adapt to it, and it'll drive them bonkers. And for me, I was able to deal with it. But if you cannot deal with noise at night, barking dogs, karaoke, kids playing, at hours that you think they should be at home, then you shouldn't come here. Another thing is, if you're the kind of person that, gets mad in McDonald's drive-thru because it's taking too long, that is an indication that you would suffer miserably here in the Philippines. Let's say you go to Jollibee, for example. It's a very, very popular place. There's going to be lines out the door sometimes, and it's going to take you quite a while just to order your food. If that is something that tests your patience, then you're going to struggle with that. You go to the bank and you wait in line, and um, you can rest assured that it's going to take significantly longer than what you are used to. Um, Another thing that will happen too, sometimes you'll be waiting in line to purchase something, and you'll see somebody kind of come up to the side and they'll start talking to the salesman or the worker there. And next thing you know, they have bypassed all the people in line and they're getting service as you're waiting. And if you notice, the people in front of you and the people behind you say nothing. I don't know if it even bothers them, frankly. But this is not your country. So this is their country, and that's the way they do things. And that will happen to you on a regular basis. It's like getting cut in line. You cannot, in the Philippines, do anything about it. And there's also something that is part of their culture here, that you don't argue in public. So if you see something like that and you try to say something about it, you're the one that's going to be looked down upon, not the person who cut in front. Um, you never know. There might be a reason for that. Maybe she has a sick kid at home, and she had told them that, and you don't speak the language, and maybe everybody's cool with it, or whatever the reasons are. It's not something that people ever say anything about. And believe me, I was in 3 places today, and I saw it, and it happened to me. But you don't say anything about it. That's just not part of their culture here. Another thing is, and all of these things are like turning the lens on yourself. Traffic. Okay, I know traffic in the States, or in other places causes, frustration for people, and they go road rage and they do things like that. Now, if you're the kind of person that gives people the finger when you're driving, or, you get upset and you can't go with the flow and you haven't overcome that immature side of yourself, then definitely do not come here. There's over 110 million people packed into these small islands, and the population is, it's very crowded. So of course there's going to be a lot of cars, motorcycles, jeepneys, taxis, etc., all trying to make it to their destination the same way as you are. And if you notice, they're not giving anybody the finger. They're not upset with it. It's just the way it is. There's something about Filipinos that they just go with the flow. If you cannot go with that flow of traffic, then don't come here, because it'll drive you insane. Now, another thing is the food. Okay, McDonald's and other places, it's kind of standard, but at the same time, I went to a McDonald's about a month ago, maybe, and I got a quarter pounder with cheese, and I don't know what the heck it was. They had quarter pounders or cheese are supposed to be thick. It's called a quarter pounder for a reason. They had put the quarter pounder on a small hamburger bun, and they had smashed 2 patties together, and it looked like some kind of flying, like Saturn or something. There was a bun, and the thin patty was jutting out of it several inches. So, you don't complain about it. It's not something that they do here. If you complain about things here, then you're the one that is frowned upon. It's not them. It's always going to be you. You don't lose. Filipinos don't like to lose face. So in their culture, they don't argue in public. They keep it to themselves, and they just adapt to it. Or that's the way it is. Some things, that occur, I'll still kind of shrug my shoulders and go, what in the world, and I'll say something to my wife, and she'll go, that's just the way it is, oh, well, it's you're the one that's going to be having the problem. Nobody else around you is. It's just you. And why is that? It's because you cannot adapt to your surroundings. And you have to keep in mind that this is not your country. This is their country, and you're a guest. You're a visitor, and the way that the things that you're accustomed to are definitely not what they are accustomed to. So that is a huge thing. It's all pretty much patience. If you don't have patience, then you're going to struggle here. If you are the kind of person that gets mad about things and is impatient about, the service in the restaurants. Another thing is you go to the restaurant, right? And this happens to us all the time. Like even at Jollibee. And Jollibee is a fast food restaurant similar to McDonald's. It's their number one fast food place in the Philippines. She orders her food, and they'll say, "Sir, do you mind waiting 15 minutes for your sandwich?" Every time they'll ask me. And I say, "Sure, no problem." And every time, she's done eating by the time I get the sandwich. So if things like that are going to tick you off and chap your hide, and you think that you can complain about it, forget it. It's going to be your issue and not theirs. That's just the way it is here. And you go to a restaurant, the same thing will happen. You might order something, and it won't arrive in sync. Rarely ever does it. So unless you like order the same thing or something, and then usually, usually they'll come at the same time. So that's a technique that you can try. You can order the same things, and typically you'll get them at the same time. But you gotta kind of experiment with there are techniques that you can use, and they're not really techniques. It's you're an observant person. You can figure out ways to get around these things, and that's one way to do it, is order the same food as your significant other. Another thing here that you should not come to the Philippines if you expect to have a social life. A lot of the expats that come here, they like to keep to themselves. And there's valid reasons for that. There are expats here, and I'm not stereotyping. I'm trying not to, but after 10 years of experience, I can tell you that many expats that come here are disgruntled. They complain about all these things that I've said, and they frown upon things that Filipinos do, that Filipinos don't do, and all they do is blah 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 about how terrible it is here. And then if you ask them, so why don't you move? They have some excuse as to why. Oh, I've got family, I've got kids, I've got blah blah blah, and it's just kind of futile, and it's negative, and it really makes us look bad. If you're the kind of Karen who is just going to complain about Filipino culture and Filipino ways, then you're just reflecting negatively upon those of us that don't mind any of this stuff. Because quite frankly, I don't mind any of it, and I've learned to just let it be. You can take a stand on stuff, and people aren't going to understand what you're saying. They're not going to get why you're throwing a fit, and they're going to think that you're either drunk or crazy or just a bad person. And again, they're going to think that especially if they've never met any other foreigners, they're going to stereotype all the foreigners and say, these foreigners are just bad attitude. So you might want to consider just staying at home if you can't adapt to those things. Another thing that you hear a lot of people say, and it's terribly true, is if you cannot handle your alcohol, or if you drink too much, you should probably stay in the United States. And another thing, um, and not just the United States. I know there's Australia, England, et cetera, in your home country. So if you're a drinker in your home country, then you're gonna probably get here. Um, it's gonna, the boredom is gonna set in after a while, and what are you gonna do? You're gonna pick up a bottle, and that's when it's a recipe for disaster. Another thing is here, and I know that weed has been legalized in a lot of countries and states, especially in the United States. It's practically legal in every state. If you have to have your weed, then you better not come to the Philippines. If you get caught with weed here, it's a huge offense. And the Philippine jails are no joke. Um, if you go to jail here, most jails do not even provide food. Your family has to bring you food, otherwise you're going to starve. And hello, you don't have family here. So your support system is completely limited. Trust me, you don't want to come here if you can't either quit or pause your cannabis use, because that is just going to get you into huge trouble. And if you think, oh, I can do it on the down low, or oh, I can smuggle it in here, no, you can't, and don't try. Believe me, it's not worth it. Here's another reason why you should not come to the Philippines. I met somebody before who had never even been here, and he packed up all his stuff, sold everything, and thought that this would be the place of his dreams. And when he got here, he was in culture shock for multiple things that I've already mentioned previously. He didn't like the noise. He didn't like the tricycles driving around all nights. He didn't like the waiting in line and the heat and everything. And he had sold everything. So if you have not spent time here, don't take that risk. Come here and make sure you come in all seasons. You spend a good amount of time here in the hot season, the summer, and in the rainy season, as they call it, because in the Philippines there's really only two seasons: summer and rain. And in the rainy season, believe me, it's like a monsoon. And the Philippines has typhoons. And the weather, when it goes, into tropical storms, which happens quite frequently in the Philippines, it's going to rain like cats and dogs, like you've never seen before, mostly in any place that you're from. It can, really, really shake things up. There's flooding. I lived in a town several years back that in the rainy season, the whole town would flood, and you'd be riding a tricycle and holding your feet up off the ground because the water would be coming in. Or if you wanted to walk somewhere, you were literally walking in 2 feet of water, or 1.5 feet of water. So make sure that you come here and experience everything, for Pete's sake, before you just dive in, with blinders on, and think that it's going to be everything that you expected. Because I guarantee you, it's not going to be everything that you expect. There's going to be so many things that are going to shock you culturally that you are not used to and you wouldn't expect. So by all means, if you're going to move here, make sure that you've done several visits, checked out the area that you're going to reside in, at least, research it, because you might miss certain things, but check things off the list that you would want to avoid. Now, this one's huge. As a foreigner, you cannot work here. Now, if you're an IT guy and you have a job, where you can work remotely, well then, great, that's perfect. However, you have to adapt to downed internet, brownouts, things like that occur, and it might be extremely frustrating. So if your um, job is not aware of these things and they're not adaptable, and those things might get you in hot water with work, then you're going to struggle here, and you probably should consider not coming here. But there is no, unless you come here, on a work visa for an existing company, um, you cannot work here. If you get caught working here, they will kick you out of the country, you'll get blacklisted, and you won't be able to come back. And trust me, you don't want that to happen. It's different. If you want a certain product, and maybe you find it in a store, and you buy it, and maybe it's there again the second time you come there. The next thing you know, it's gone, they're out of stock, and you keep going back to it, and it won't come back. That happens all the time. If you do find products that you like and they're from your home country, they're going to cost you 2, 3, upwards of 4, quadruple the price. And so, maybe you're fine with paying out the wazoo for those things that you supposedly need. But even still, they might be overpriced, but they're going to sell out of them and they won't be readily available to you. And if that's your expectation, then don't move here. Primarily, all these things boil down to your adaptability and whether or not you can conform to living in a different country with different culture, practices, temperatures, and environment. If you can't do it, then please don't come here. You're just giving us all a bad name. I said this before on a different video, but here's something that is it shocks a lot of people. You go into a barangay and you kind of look around and you see all eyes fixed upon you. Okay? That's not necessarily threatening. Here, you look different. You are standing out. And, maybe if you're like me and you have blue eyes and, fair skin and, something like that, you're especially going to stand out like a sore thumb. I'm 6'2", 235 pounds. People notice me. And I'm also a very talkative person. So, I'm boisterous and it attracts a lot of attention. People will be staring at you. And like I said before on a different video, you don't know what they're thinking. Mostly, they're just curious. Mostly, they're looking at you because, hello, you're a complete contrast to what they're used to seeing on a daily basis. So naturally, they're going to be curious and they're going to look at you. And if it bothers you, engage. What I do, people staring at me all the time. And sometimes it seems like they're glaring at you and they're having some kind of, negative thoughts in their head about you. But what I've observed is I say, "Hi, how you doing?" And next thing you know, their whole countenance changes, their eyes light up, and they become super friendly, and they're kind of surprised, and they will talk to you. So again, if I know in the States, especially because that's where I'm from, if somebody's staring at you, it's kind of they're challenging you, or it's a threat or something. Here, it's not necessarily that. Typically, it's just curiosity. So don't fall into that trap of, why is that guy staring at me? He's trying to start crap with me or something. Not almost 99% of the time, no. It's mostly you're just different, and hey, maybe you're guapo. Uh, and they're just checking you out because you're, like I said, you're a complete contrast to what they're used to seeing. So yeah, please stay home if you cannot adapt, if you cannot realize that this is a different country with different values and different beliefs and different ways of flowing through life, then by all means stay home. Another thing um, is the traffic. You know, if you're a road rager, if you can't sit in traffic or you're giving people the finger when you're driving along because they cut you off, then for sure you are going to struggle with that here. Like I said before, there's 110 million people crammed into this small area. So in the bigger cities, especially like Manila is a nightmare. You can spend 3-4 hours, trying to get 25 kilometers in traffic in Manila on some occasions. Cebu is huge, and traffic is really, really bad compared to where I'm from in the Northwest, United States. And to me, it's all stimulating. It's all different. I like to see it. I like to be in it. I like to be involved in all these unique and different things. You've got guys, and if you're driving, and somebody cuts you off, that's gonna happen. 75% of the time you're driving. There are no real. The laws are different driving here. You can cut in front of people. People will get super close to your bumper. Horn honking here. In the States, when somebody honks their horn at you, it's usually because they're angry with you. Here, it's not that. It's like a friendly, hey, here I am, and I'm about to go around you. And that was kind of tough for me to adapt to years back when I first moved here. People would honk their horn at me. I would be like, what? What are you honking your horn at me for? What's your problem? And I started to realize that that's not why they're honking. They're honking to say, yo, here I am. Don't crash into me. I'm about to go around you. Or they'll give you a warning. And this is the thing here, too. If you drive, they'll pass you on the right side and they'll pass you on the left side. There's no rules about it. Motorcycles will drive right up to you, and they'll be sandwiched in between two cars, and they'll be right at your window, and they'll weave around and do all these things. And that is the Philippines. That's the way it is here, guys. And if you can't handle it, then do not move here. So, okay. Hopefully you got some good advice out of this. I know this is all over the internet, but again, I've met a lot of people who just yap and complain about all of these things, and to impress upon you reasons why you shouldn't move here. Because I think it would be great if everybody could move here, but there are certain types of people that shouldn't move here and can't, and those are the people that can't adapt. So if you can't adapt to things and go with the flow, I know it's a cliche, but if you cannot go with the flow, don't move